My name is Tom Young, and I'm preparing this Ferrari 250 Pininfarina Coupe for Cavallino 2024. This car has been to Cavallino once before, and we came really close. I mean, we were half a point from platinum. So out of 100 points, they found some things that they didn't feel were right on the car, and they deducted a few points, and we fell off the platinum contention. I've corrected them to the best that I could, and made the car even better. Owner was okay with it. He said, "Look, this is what happens. We have to take what we take," and he really wanted to take it back. So we're taking it back again this year. This 1959 Pininfarina Coupe is a special car. It has a detail on it that you don't see very often, or very rarely, which is these side grates. These were found on a 410 Super America, but ended up on this car. And I'll talk about it later, but have photographic proof, or at least some pretty good proof, that this car originally was ordered with that, along with a couple other special items on this car, which I'll get into. But as far as the prep is concerned, I just had my detailer come yesterday. The car is about to leave a week from now. So what I usually do is I schedule a detailer to come to my shop and clean this car and polish it as best as he can before I put it on a truck. We have a little bit of a struggle when we show cars from the Northeast going down to Cavallino. It's January. The show's in January. So what ends up happening is usually up in New York, we get some kind of snowfall. In fact, we just got about 3 inches yesterday. And it really kind of puts a damper on getting cars clean. And then it goes down to Florida, and it's sunny and hot and humid and everything else. So a lot of challenges. But for me, what I usually do, also because it's a working shop, there's no way a mechanical shop can stay dust-free. Most shops can't stay dust-free. I wish I had a separate showroom to put these show cars in, but the reality of it is I can't do it for my situation. So the only solution I have is to just get the cars cleaned as best as I can, as close as I can, without conflicting with the truck driver, and then get the car loaded up, and then just kind of shut down dusty work that I do at the shop. I talked to my detailer. We have a couple ideas in the future to try to cover cars. I often don't like to cover cars. If you look in the shop, a lot of the cars here are not covered, and part of the reason is because the dust that goes through a cloth cover will still make it through onto the paint, and then the cover just tends to abrade the paint with the dust that's in it. So I don't know if there's necessarily a solution. Sometimes people will put it in plastic bags or plastic sheeting. That's an idea too, or a double layer of cover. I don't know, but if anybody has suggestions, certainly let me know. But what I basically have done is recognize that if I keep the cars clean as best as I can, and then right before it goes out, clean it as best as I can, and you can usually clay bar and polish out any of the dust or things like that, as opposed to doing any more damage to the paint. Anyway, what does it take to prepare a car for a concours? Well, for me, first, cleaning everything. So I've gone in here and just kind of cleaned and blown off as much as the dust as I can, and then wiped down surfaces inside the engine compartment. All the stickers and everything have obviously already been applied, so it's really a matter of just maintaining the finishes and making sure that there's no extra rust or anything that's accumulated on just some of the bare metal pieces that are naturally found in the engine compartment. Use some sprays and sealants and things like that just to get everything nice and clean. The other thing I have to do is I have the car up on jack stands because I have to take the wheels off. Sometimes cleaning the wheels, the best way to do it is just to take it off the car. I could get down on my hands and knees, or right down on my knees, and just try to clean it. But the back saving thing is just to take the wheels off and clean the wheels one at a time. Get your cloth in there and just polish them and get the wheels up and do that. The interior is in pretty good shape. I haven't had to do much with it, so it's just really keeping the plastic cover on this seat, just simply because the truck driver is going to come and he's going to get in and out. We try our best to keep things covered, and that way they don't get stained. Also, what I've done is I've wrapped these are overmats that I've used that I have the actual correct carpets and everything underneath it, even though it's the right color for use. I've taken the overmat and just covered it with the protective vinyl, just simply so that getting in and out of the car, you're not putting more dirt on the overmats. But then when it's showtime, I'm going to pull the top cover off and then expose the correct color, the correct floor mats that are in the car. The rest of it, interior wise, is just trying to keep things clean. The thing on the list today is I have to clean the grill. The grill is in pretty good shape, but there are a little bit of water spots, and when you put a LED light on it, you really do see some of the little water spots. I mean, at some point I had to hose down this car and get some of the dirt and dust off of it. So you try to blow off as much of the water, but aluminum, especially bare aluminum, tends to show a lot of water spots. So I'm going to go in there today and clean that out and get that. That's one of the last few things I need to do. And unfortunately, I can't take the grill out to polish and clean, so it's just going to have to be down on the floor and sitting on an apple box and just try to clean it as best as I can. Another few things that I have to prep on the car is just to double check the electrics, make sure that the blinkers work. For a Ferrari sanctioned show, Ferrari Club of America sanctioned show, they do test to make sure the operation of all the things like the horns, the lights, the turn signals, all those things they want to see operational. So what I do is I go through the whole car and just make sure that everything's working at this point. It's kind of tough because one of the struggles we also get here is that when it's, right now the shop is probably about 60 degrees with the heat on, 60, 62 degrees. And then what'll happen is it'll load it into a truck, which will be just outside temperature. And it could be anywhere. Right now outside, it's 20 degrees out. So this car is going to go into a cold transporter and then travel down to Florida, which is about a 3-day trip. Over 3 days. It'll probably pick it up on Tuesday. I probably pull it off the truck on Friday. So again, it'll be 3 days sitting in a truck, and it'll be outside. And by the time it gets to Florida, it'll be, the last time I checked Florida weather was in the 80s with probably middle to high humidity. So it goes from cold dry air to hot humid air in a matter of a week. That really wreaks havoc with electrics. I mean, the little electrical switches are not solid state. They're just little contact points. And with that type of moisture, you can often get a little bit of moisture buildup on the internal sides of the switches. And all of a sudden, when you check everything works fine up here, take it down to Florida, and all of a sudden you got these electrical gremlins. It's just part of the struggle, but it's something that you just have to kind of work with. But another thing that I do and make sure I do a lot is to put this thing on a charger and make sure that the battery is completely topped up. I mean, as much as I can get to make sure that it's fully charged. Because again, one of the struggles with a show car is that it doesn't get driven much. So what happens is, and especially this car is a generator. So when you think about it, I'm going to start it, I'm going to idle it, I'm going to put it on the truck. If it needs to come off the truck, it idles, it starts, it moves. They move it sometimes once or twice. Hopefully, it will only be loaded on the truck, started once, put on the truck, and then loaded and taken off. But you never know. I mean, sometimes I've seen guys with these cars where there's a 6-car transporter, and all of a sudden they got to move and shuttle some cars around. So a car gets started, stopped, moved, started, stopped, moved, never gets a chance to charge the battery back up. And then you take it to the show and you've got half charge on the battery, and it won't start because you have a dead battery. There's very rarely an outlet at the shows to charge a battery. You can use a jump pack to start it, but it's still very, very, very rarely going to have enough charge in the charging system to charge that battery back up. So it's really a struggle. So at least, for the very least, what I do is make sure that the battery itself is charged, is fresh. This is a fairly fresh battery, about a year or so old. So I'm hoping it'll hold its charge and be topped up. But at the very least, for me, what I do is I charge and make sure that battery is as charged as it possibly can before it leaves my hands. A couple other things that I have to check besides the lights and make sure that I have all the documentation that I need, and also toolkits. So in the trunk, I'll put this toolkit away, but just to go over it, I mean, obviously it's where it was from last year, so I'm in pretty good shape. I mean, I haven't really touched anything, and copied the book and made sure that all the right pieces and everything are in this toolkit. So just to make sure that everything's there. And then I also make sure that I have the right books here for for what they call the books for the car, which is the warranty book, the parts book, things like that, to make sure that the car has it all. So that's kind of where that is. And then what I also do, I have one book here that I use for just for reference. So like if the guy comes and the judges want to see the story of the car, so I can basically go through and show pictures of how this car was when it was purchased. This was purchased in the 80s. The story that goes on this car was that in the 80s, when it was purchased, when it was in this red color, it had no side grates on it. It was just been painted. Obviously painted not the original color, because the original color of the car is this color, this dark blue. But when they stripped the paint off of it, they realized they found this patch that was over here. And so what that meant was that something had happened. And the theory that we have is that this car probably got into some kind of fender bender on the left side of the car, and probably hit this grate and bent it all up. In the, who knows, in the 70s or so, or 80s, or whenever that happened, trying to find a replacement grill was probably nearly impossible. We didn't have the internet back then, so trying to find something like that, which would only come on 410 Super Americas in the 70s and 80s, I could imagine, was nearly impossible. So I think what they did was then they decided to paint the car red. I think every Ferrari in the 80s was painted red. So when it got its red paint job, what they decided to do was fix the damage to the fender here by just blocking out this grate. But in order for it to match, what they did was they just built a plug on this side and plugged it up and made it flat as well, so it would match. The only difference is that when you strip the paint off, this side was pretty much flat and smooth. You could still see that there was a hole there. But on the other side, instead of cutting all the lip and the edges out, what they did was they just made a blank and then filled it in. The owner wanted to find these grates, and he actually was able to find someone who had found a pair of these in Italy one day and just had them in his collection of parts. And when they put it in the hole, it matched the hole exactly. So it came to be that we felt, or they felt, that it probably was the original grate, because it was the same thing that came out of a 410 Super America. The idea of it was, when this car was redone, we decided to go ahead and put those grates back in. So so I have pictures here in this book just to explain that, and then also show the extent of the rust and the damage. And this is kind of like a presentation that I will give to the judges, just to show the extent of the work and how it was done, and the quality and all that other stuff. That just gives everybody a good idea of where and how we all did this. And then at the end, what we also had was, there was a discussion last year on whether or not the interior of this car should have vinyl. Pininfarina Coupes did have vinyl pieces in the car, and unfortunately they deducted points for the interior, but there was no way that I could prove. I mean, the only thing we did was, when we restored the car and we put the full leather interior, we were only really copying what was originally in this car, or what we found. But the judges had a question about that, and what they did was they said, well, we think that Pininfarina Coupes are supposed to have originally vinyl interiors, and this one has a leather interior. We're not sure about that, and they deducted for it. Well, what I ended up doing was I found some research and found that this car, when you look at the sequential numbers of cars that were built, if you follow this all the way through, it says here that it was done in, let's see, where is it? The line says Pele. So Pele, at the very end there, is showing that it was ordered in leather, as opposed to, if you look at the one below it, it says Plastico, which I would assume is vinyl. So this was given to me from Hill Robb, who originally went to the factory and copied a lot of these documents from Pininfarina. And so I pretty much have proof that this car, because he basically transcribed the Pininfarina books to his records to show, you know, he at the time he was such a big fan of these cars that he had gone to Pininfarina and asked them if he could copy the books, and they allowed him. They would allow him to take the books and photocopy them, but they did allow him to sit down and transcribe line for line. And I can't believe this, but Hillary sat down back in the 60s and copy these line for line. So it's proven right there that this car was originally ordered with a leather interior. So now I go armed now with this car, with the documentation and the paperwork to prove that this car was originally leather. So if you really thought about it, like the 1-point deduction of a leather to vinyl interior would have pushed us right into platinum. Pretty frustrating, but at the same time, you know, that's what happens. And we're going back. We're respectfully showing the proof that they required, and that's where we are with this car. So got my work cut out for me today to just keep cleaning and getting this detailed, and then loading it up, and you'll see it at Cavallino soon. Thanks for watching.